The communications array hummed its familiar song as Nessa Vance adjusted the frequency filters for the third time that hour. Station Orpheus, perched on the edge of explored space, wasn't known for excitement. Most days blurred together in a haze of routine signal monitoring and automated responses to passing vessels, requesting navigation data. She tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear and leaned back in her chair, watching the holographic display cycle through incoming transmissions. 3 years she'd been here, 3 years of voluntary exile from Earth after her engagement fell apart. Her fiancé had wanted someone who'd stay planetside, someone who'd give up the stars for a house with a white picket fence. Nessa had chosen the stars. The console beeped softly, indicating an approaching vessel. She pulled up the identification signature and smiled despite herself. The Wandering Dream, right on schedule. Station Orpheus to Wandering Dream, she said into her headset, trying to keep her voice professionally neutral. You're cleared for Docking Bay 3. Welcome back, Torvin. The response came through after the brief lag of distance. Nessa. His voice carried that distinctive harmonic quality of his species, the Veliron, like two tones speaking in unison. I brought those Andromedan coffee beans you requested. The real ones this time, not the synthetic substitutes. Her smile widened. You're going to bankrupt yourself, trying to impress me with Earth luxuries. Perhaps I consider it a worthwhile investment. There was something in his tone that made her heart skip, though she quickly pushed the feeling aside. Torvin was a trader, charming by profession. He probably spoke to everyone this way, making them feel special so they'd be more inclined to expedite his docking requests or overlook minor regulation violations. Except he'd never asked her to overlook anything. He followed every protocol to the letter, even the tedious ones most traders complained about. And he always brought her little gifts from his travels. Things he somehow knew she'd love even though she'd never mentioned them. 20 minutes later, the docking clamps engaged with a solid thunk that reverberated through the station's hull. Nessa finished logging the arrival and stood, stretching muscles cramped from too many hours at her post. She should wait for him to come to the operations center like she did with every other trader. That would be professional. Instead, she found herself walking toward Docking Bay 3. The bay was quiet, most of the station's skeleton crew occupied with their own duties. The Wandering Dream sat nestled in its berth, a sleek vessel of Veliron design that looked more like a piece of abstract art than a cargo ship. Its hull shimmered with an iridescent quality, shifting between deep purples and midnight blues, depending on the angle of the light. The airlock hissed open, and Torvin emerged. He was tall, even by Veliron standards, with the characteristic angular features of his people. His skin held that same iridescent quality as his ship, though his coloring tended more toward silver and pale blue. But it was his eyes that always caught her, large and luminous, the color of Earth's oceans, with vertical pupils that dilated when he saw her. You didn't have to come all the way down here, he said, but his expression suggested he was pleased she had. I was due for a break anyway, Nessa replied, aiming for casual and probably missing by a mile. Besides, you promised real coffee. I need to verify this claim immediately. Torvin's mouth curved in. What she'd learned was the Veliron equivalent of a smile. Ever the diligent officer, he retrieved a small sealed container from a magnetic clip on his belt. Though I should warn you, I may have ulterior motives for bringing gifts. Oh? She accepted the container, their fingers brushing briefly. His skin was cooler than hers, smooth and slightly textured in a way she'd only felt once before. 3 months ago when she'd helped him carry supplies, and their hands had touched. I was hoping you might join me for a meal, he said. Not here in the station. I found a planet, 2 jumps from here, uninhabited but beautiful. There's a beach where the water is naturally luminescent, and the star sets in a way that would put Earth's best sunsets to shame. Nessa's breath caught. This wasn't the casual friendliness of a trader maintaining good relations with a station officer. This was something else entirely. Torvin, she hesitated, a dozen reasons why this was complicated flooding her mind. Fraternization policies, the vast differences between their species, the fact that he traveled constantly while she was stationed here, the vulnerability required to open her heart again after it had been broken. You don't have to answer now, he said quickly, reading her hesitation. I know it's presumptuous. We barely know each other, despite these monthly conversations over comm channels and brief meetings in docking bays. He paused, and when he continued, his voice was softer, more vulnerable. But I would very much like to change that. To know you properly, Nessa Vance, not just the communications officer who makes my rival procedures smoother, but the woman who reads ancient poetry, who chose the stars over safety, who drinks her coffee so black it could strip paint. How do you know I read poetry? She asked, startled. Last time I was here, you were reading Neruda. I could see the title on your datapad when you thought I wasn't looking. I've been trying to find a good translation in Standard Valeron ever since, but the language doesn't quite capture the same feeling. Something in Nessa's chest loosened, a knot she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. Here was someone who noticed the small things, who paid attention not to impress, but because he genuinely wanted to understand her. The Sunset Beach, she said slowly. When were you thinking? His eyes brightened, the pupils dilating further. My cargo delivery isn't scheduled until next week. I could wait if you can arrange leave time. I haven't taken a day off in 8 months, Nessa admitted. My supervisor keeps threatening to force me on vacation. Then perhaps we'd be doing her a favor. Nessa looked down at the coffee container in her hands, then back up at Torvin. Fear and excitement warred within her, but when she met his ocean-colored eyes, excitement won. Okay, she said. Yes, let's go see this sunset. The smile that spread across Torvin's face was worth every risk. The personnel office was a cramped cubicle, tucked into the administrative wing of Station Orpheus, its walls covered in safety regulations and emergency procedure charts. Nessa stood before the desk of Lieutenant Mira Solis, her best friend and the closest thing to family she had on the station. Myra looked up from her datapad, one eyebrow raised in suspicion. Let me get this straight. You, Nessa Vance, who hasn't taken a single day off in 8 months, who volunteered for double shifts during the holiday rotation, who practically lives in the communications center, you want 3 days of leave starting tomorrow. That's correct, Nessa said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. And this has nothing to do with a certain Veliron trader who docked yesterday? Nessa felt heat rise to her cheeks. I didn't say that. Mira set down her datapad and leaned back in her chair, a knowing smile playing at her lips. She was shorter than Nessa, with warm brown skin and close-cropped hair that defied military regulations, but somehow she always got away with it. They'd gone through academy training together. Before Nessa specialized in communications and Mira went into administration. Nessa, honey, I've watched you and Torvin dance around each other for 6 months now. Every time his ship appears on the approach vectors, you get this look on your face. And don't think I haven't noticed how he always finds reasons to extend his stays here. We're just friends. Nessa protested weakly. Sure, and I'm the queen of Centauri Prime. Myra pulled up a holographic form and began filling it in with quick, practiced movements. Where's he taking you? Some uninhabited planet. He says there's a beach. An uninhabited planet, Myra repeated, her expression shifting to concern. Nessa, I love that you're finally putting yourself out there again after what happened with Derek. But you need to be smart about this. You barely know this guy. I know him better than you think, Nessa said quietly. We've been talking for months, Myra. Real conversations, not just the surface stuff. He knows about my family, about why I left Earth, About the poetry I read, and the dreams I have about exploring beyond charted space. And I know about his home world, about losing his parents when their colony was struck by solar radiation, about his younger brother who's studying xenobiology. Myra's expression softened. You really like him? I'm terrified, Nessa admitted. What if I'm wrong about him? What if I'm just seeing what I want to see? And even if I'm not wrong, he's Valiron. I'm human. The cultural differences alone. Are you asking me to talk you out of this? Myra interrupted gently. Nessa met her friend's eyes. No, I'm asking you to approve my leave request so I can take a chance on something that might be wonderful or might break my heart. But either way, I need to know. Myra smiled and authorized the request with a flourish. Leave approved. But Nessa? Take a communicator and check in once a day just so I know you're safe. If you don't, I'm sending a rescue team. Deal. The wandering dream was more beautiful on the inside than Nessa had imagined. Where human ships favored functionality over aesthetics, Valiron design embraced both. The corridors curved in graceful arcs, lined with panels that emitted a soft, ambient light. Everything felt organic, as if the ship had been grown rather than built. Torvin led her to the observation deck, a dome of transparent material that offered an unobstructed view of space. Nessa gasped. She'd seen stars through view screens and windows countless times, but this was different. The transparency was so complete, it felt like she was floating in the void itself, with only the deck beneath her feet, anchoring her to reality. This is incredible. She breathed. It's my favorite place on the ship, Torvin said, standing beside her. When space travel becomes routine, when the wonder starts to fade, I come here. It reminds me why I chose this life. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the stars drift by as the ship maneuvered away from the station. Nessa was acutely aware of Torvin's presence beside her, the small distance between them that felt both too much and not enough. I should tell you something, Torvin said finally, about why I started stopping at Station Orpheus. Nessa turned to look at him, her heart rate picking up. The first time was purely practical, he continued. I needed to refuel and run diagnostics on my navigation systems. But then I heard your voice over the comm channel, guiding me through the docking procedures. You were professional, efficient, exactly what I needed. But there was something else, too. A warmth underneath the formality. A kindness in how you warned me about a debris field in my projected path, even though it wasn't strictly your responsibility. He turned to face her fully, his luminous eyes holding hers. I found excuses to come back. Routes that weren't quite as efficient, but happened to pass near Station Orpheus. Cargo runs that could have been handled by others, but I took them myself. Because every time I came back, I learned something new about you, and every new thing I learned made me want to know more. Nessa's mouth had gone dry. Torvin, I know the complications, he said softly. I know we're from different worlds, different cultures. I know that my life is constant travel, and yours is rooted to that station. I know that what I'm feeling might be impossible, impractical, perhaps even foolish. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand in his. But I also know that in all my years of traveling across this sector, through hundreds of systems and thousands of encounters, I've never felt like this about anyone. The coolness of his skin against hers sent electricity racing up her arm. Nessa found her voice, though it came out barely above a whisper. Like what? Like I've finally found something worth staying still for. The observation deck, the stars, the ship itself, all of it, faded to background noise. There was only Torvin, his hand in hers, his eyes reflecting her own hope and fear and desperate wanting. I'm scared, Nessa admitted. After Derek, I promised myself I wouldn't rush into anything, that I'd be careful, protected. Then we'll go slowly, Torvin said. This trip, think of it as just two friends sharing a sunset. Nothing more has to happen unless you want it to. But even as he said it, Nessa knew it was already too late for slow. Her heart had made its choice the moment she'd walked down to Docking Bay 3, instead of waiting in the operations center. Maybe even before that, in all those months of lingering conversations and loaded glances. What if I don't want slow? She asked. Torvin's breath caught, his pupils dilating wide. Then we'll figure it out together. One sunset at a time. The planet appeared on the view screen 8 hours later, a jewel of blues and greens suspended against the darkness. It had no name, only a designation in the navigation charts. Theta 779. Uninhabited, unremarkable, except for its breathable atmosphere and stable climate. There, Torvin said, pointing to a continent on the eastern hemisphere. The beach is on the southern coast. The descent through the atmosphere was smooth, the ship's systems compensating automatically for wind shear and pressure changes. Nessa watched through the observation dome as clouds gave way to a vast ocean. Its waters a deep turquoise that reminded her of pictures she'd seen of Earth's tropical seas before climate change had altered them. The beach stretched for miles in both directions, white sand meeting luminescent water. And Torvin had been right about the sunset. The system star hung low on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and deep purple that Earth's sun could never quite achieve. Torvin landed the ship on a flat area back from the shore and extended the boarding ramp. The moment Nessa stepped outside, she understood why he'd chosen this place. The air smelled of salt and something floral she couldn't identify. The sand was warm beneath her feet, and the water's luminescence created an otherworldly glow that made everything feel like a dream. It's perfect, she said. Torvin had brought supplies from the ship, a blanket, food from both their cultures, and a bottle of something that looked like wine, but shimmered with an internal light. They sat on the beach as the star set, painting them both in its fading glory. They talked about everything and nothing, childhood memories, favorite foods, fears and dreams, and all the small details that turned strangers into something more. On Valera, Torvin said as the last light faded and the water's glow intensified, we have a saying. Shevanim Korathi, when hearts recognize each other across the void. That's beautiful, Nessa said. What does it mean, exactly? It means that sometimes, against all logic and probability, two souls find each other despite the vastness of space and the barriers of circumstance. And when that happens, it's considered sacred, worth fighting for. Nessa looked at him, at this alien man who'd traveled across stars to bring her coffee and poetry, and now this perfect moment. Do you think that's what this is? I think, Torvin said slowly, that I've been searching my entire life without knowing what I was looking for. And then I heard your voice over a com channel, and suddenly I knew. He reached out, his cool fingers tracing the line of her jaw. Nessa leaned into the touch, her eyes fluttering closed. Shevanim Korathi, she whispered. When Torvin kissed her, it was gentle and questioning, a promise rather than a demand. His lips were cooler than hers, but soft, and the slight texture of his skin created a sensation she'd never felt before. Nessa's hands found his chest, feeling the double rhythm of his Valeron, heart beneath her palms. The luminescent water glowed brighter, as if responding to the moment. And somewhere in the distance, night birds called to each other in songs that sounded almost like celebration. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless despite their different biologies, Torvin rested his forehead against hers. Worth the wait? He asked. Nessa laughed, the sound carrying joy and relief and the intoxicating feeling of taking a leap and finding someone there to catch you. Worth everything, she said, and kissed him again as the alien stars wheeled overhead and the luminescent waves sang their approval to the shore.